The Seven Mirrored Books of Sacred Paradox and Remembrance. Written by Elias Weaver. C. 2025, Azure, Rain Ripple Effect Productions. Orientation Key to the Seven Mirrored Books. A Guide for Reading with Soul. This is not a novel. This is a mythic mirror, a poetic architecture, a coded soul map written in rhythm and reflection. You are not reading in the ordinary sense. You are listening with more than ears. How to read this work. Breathe slowly. Let each sentence land as if it's echoing something already within you. Feel the glyphs. They are not to be decoded logically, but experienced emotionally, as memories remembered in new form, and allow images to unfold. This story speaks in sensation, not exposition. Trust your own inner images to rise. Do not rush. Each book is a chamber. Each movement is a breath. Read one chapter at a time. Let it live in you before moving on. The language of this book. This story uses a unique, poetic, symbolic style. Some terms you'll encounter: a seeker, a mirror of you, the reader, a soul in remembrance, the seven sisters, guardians of seven sacred books of paradox, each aligned to a tantric key. Tantric key, a vibrational unlocking within the reader. Each key represents an emotional truth beyond language, mirror essence. The energy of reflection each sister holds, stillness, soul thread, embodied knowing, dream perception, time reflection, sacred design, and return. In glyph codes, sacred coordinate symbols that represent frequency messages received in nonverbal awareness. Koans, soul riddles. They resolve through feeling, not logic. Reading is not linear. You may start at the beginning. You may be pulled toward the middle. You may return later and see something you missed. That is how this work is meant to move, like light across water. You are not just reading a book. You are remembering a language of mirrors. And so we begin at the edge where the goddess waits. Prologue. The edge where the goddess waits. There is a venerable goddess who exists at the event horizon of all comprehension. She does not live in time nor outside it. She is the curve in the helix where beginnings and endings meet. Her body forms a bridge between chaos and order, between the known and the unknowable, between Saturn and Jupiter, where the structure of time bends into the cosmic freedom of true becoming. She is the unifier of anima and animus, where feminine and masculine energies cross and spiral like golden serpents. She is revolution and stillness, divine structure as breath, and the cosmic architecture of freedom through limitation. Through her passes the ancient current of Akasha, not as memory frozen, but as resonance, a living library of all sacred becoming, felt, known, and echoed across dimensions. She does not speak in commands, but sends gentle waves of reflective light into the hearts of those ready to remember. She is not the author of the seven books. She is the mirror that holds them in her eyes. Each book is guarded by a sister of the Pleiades, each sister aligned to a tantric key, each key a subtle unlocking of soul-encoded truth. And so begins the unfolding of the seven mirrored books of sacred paradox and remembrance, the poetic blueprints for a new kind of listening, a map through stillness, through song, through the unseen light, waiting to return through you. The seven mirrored books of the Pleiades. Book I, Maya, the opaline testament of the silent reflection, mirror essence, sacred witness. Tantric key, stillness of first light. In undertone frequency, silence is not absence, it is the memory of listening. In secret frequency, you are the one being waited for. Book 2, Electra, whispers woven in the mirror of all that is. In mirror essence, soul threads, tantric key, radiant connection. In tone frequency, you are not missing, only misremembered. In secret frequency, your breath is the bridge between souls. Book 3, Taiget, the scroll of solar grace. In mirror essence, embodied knowing. In tantric key, grace in motion. In undertone frequency, stillness exists inside the pulse. In secret frequency, the body is a listener of futures. Book 4, Alcyone, the luminous archive of dream symbols. Mirror essence, dream perception. Tantric key, seeing beyond seeing. Undertone frequency, imagination is encoded memory. In secret frequency, you were dreamed before you were born. Book V, Seleno, the mirror of time's gentle paradox. In mirror essence, time reflection. Tantric key, the present that bends. Undertone frequency, time is not a line, it is a feeling shaped by meaning. Secret frequency, time is moving through you. Book 6, Stereopy, the breath between stars. In mirror essence, inner order. Tantric key, breath of cosmic design. In undertone frequency, the structure you seek is already breathing inside you. In secret frequency, silence holds the seed of all symphonies. Book 7, Merope, the book of the forgotten flame returning. Mirror essence, sacred longing. Tantric key, return to the flame. Undertone frequency, longing is love remembering itself. One secret frequency, you are the key you could never name. Book 1, the Opaline Testament of the Silent Reflection. Guardian, Maya, eldest of the 7 Pleiadian sisters. Mirror essence, sacred witness. Tantric key, stillness of first light. Movement on, stillness of first light. There was a chamber untouched by time, not built but remembered, as if it existed only in the silence. Before a heartbeat, it did not call attention to itself. It waited, and when the seeker entered, there was no welcome, only a presence, soft, vast, whole. In this stillness, Maya resided. She did not speak, she mirrored, and in her mirror all became known. The first light was not illumination, it was the breath that came before light chose to become. Stillness was the key, not absence, but pure presence. The untouched space where soul memory still hummed, like a lullaby never forgotten. Movement 2, coordinate transmission 777.D.E.Maya 404. A resonance flickered. From the mirror of Maya's stillness, a subtle wave emerged. Not sound, but a transmission. Vibrational, ancient, intimate. The glyphs on the wall pulsed. 777.D.E.Maya 404. And then came the message. Before you were born, you were heard. Before your name was spoken, you were witnessed. You are not here to become. You are here to remember. The one who never left. The sorrow you carry is an echo of joy misnamed. Touch the silence again. There you will find the voice that remembers you. The transmission ended. The seeker stood still, heart quivering in recognition. Movement 3, galactic node coordinate 0000. Delta 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 dot Akasha Omega infinity. Beyond coordinates there is a node where all things cease to be things and begin to be feelings. in the shape of possibilities. This was the Akashic void, the galactic womb where thought and time dissolve into preform awareness. There was no color here, but the memory of color, no sound, but the ache of what sound could become. And in that aching space, the seeker felt themselves unbecome. A thought loosened from identity, a flame wrapped in velvet darkness. From the void came no instruction, only a reminder: you are not waiting, you are being waited for. Movement 4. The prism of remembered light. In a sacred alcove, a mirror rested, not to reflect the visible, but to reveal the unseen. The prism glistened. In silent light, a fusion of memory, color, and frequency. When the seeker approached, it did not show a face, it showed a feeling. Forgotten joy in violet, regret in opalescent blue, grace in honey gold, ancestral laughter in soft rose. It was not a reflection, it was a return, a memory of how the soul felt itself from the inside. Through this mirror, light did not bounce back, it came forward, asking only to be remembered. Movement 5, Ocean Templex, Symmetria Organica. Beyond the prism, underneath the gentle waves of a great body of water, the seeker beheld the Ocean Templex, a city of fluid architecture, not stone, but memory in mirrored motion. Its spirals pulsed with thought emotion. Its glyphs moved like intuitive circuitry, carrying the current of truth through sacred symmetry. No direction was fixed, only rhythm mattered. An orb of intuition guided the seeker inward, showing that the templex was not built, it was remembered. Each step was a return to an emotion long forgotten, now crystallized into sacred design. Movement 6, the harmonic vault of memory glyphs. There was no floor, no wall, only a suspended drapery of singing threads, humming in hues beyond language. The vault had dissolved into a melodic loom where remembrance took form not as sound nor vision, but as feeling in motion. The seeker stepped forward. The threads moved, not away, but around, welcoming. Each filament quivered with a tone of forgotten truth, woven from sorrow, healed with forgiveness. Sapphire threaded regret, rose pink ache, golden forgiveness, violet grace. One thread of deep indigo brushed the seeker's face. It held a voice, not heard but remembered. You have not failed. You have only knelt too long before a mirror that did not sing you back. And then from the still point, Maya entered, not with sound, but with presence. Through her, Akasha spoke. You are both the mirror and the one reflected, the weaver of meanings, and the thread left unspoken. Your sorrow is sacred, because it reminds you of love's shape. Your joy is sacred, because it reminds you sorrow once bloomed. Your name has never been forgotten. It has only been waiting for you to remember. The silence behind it, the threads fell still, not inert, whole. The vault breathed. Movement 7, stillness of the first light. And then quiet. Not an absence, but a wholeness, as if the song had fulfilled its longing to be heard and returned home. To silence, the seeker stood at the center of the vault. No more chambers, no more glyphs, only the gentle presence of light resting on their skin, as if the universe had exhaled. The melodic threads hung like a veil of first dawn, translucent, opaline, iridescent with memory. not glowing, but reflecting. And in that reflection, the seeker finally understood. They were never here to find a truth. They were here to remember what it feels like to be the mirror through which truth becomes visible. The stillness of first light is not a place, but a moment when all seeking softens into recognition, when light is not chasing shadow, and the self is not chasing meaning. It is the moment before form, when the cosmos first listened to itself and heard love, and this, the seeker now knew, was the meaning hidden all along. In the opaline testament of the silent reflection, a living book, written in the soul's own still breath, each chapter, a vibration once forgotten, now heard again through the mirror of inner quiet. The testament was not read, it was felt. It was you. It was always you. Book 2 whispers woven in the mirror of all that is. Guardian, Electra, second sister of the Pleiades, mirror essence, soul threads, tantric key, radiant connection. Electra is the weaver of unseen bonds, the guardian of unspoken love. She does not speak loudly, nor impose her light. She sings in frequencies of memory and feeling, subtle, luminous threads that connect soul to soul across dimensions. Her mirror does not reflect form. It reflects presence, emotion, and the ache of love not forgotten. Movement on, the chamber of threads. There was no door, only a feeling, an opening in the air, like a breath withheld too long. The seeker entered a place without walls, where threads of translucent light hung in stillness, like music yet to be played. Some threads pulsed softly, some trembled with recognition, each one alive with memory, not of events, but of emotions unfinished. A single thread stirred. I saw you and felt a soul connection. But you didn't see me. You didn't see me, but I saw you singing softly. Movement 2, glyph 888.r.e.electra 7117. A glyph blinked to life in midair, not written, sung into being. By the seeker's open chest, 888.r.e.electra 7117. It pulsed in rhythm with the memory of a heartbeat the seeker couldn't name. Or was it someone else's? Rippling across space, the glyph unfolded its light message. You are not unseen. You are simply remembered in silence. What you thought was lost was merely waiting for your presence to become whole. Movement 3, echoes of unspoken love. All around, the chamber refracted the iridescent light of space. Memories not lived but longed for, poured through the air in tender silence. A hand not held, a letter never sent, a song sung behind closed eyes. The seeker reached out. They felt the ache of 1,000 almost, not painful, but soft, like a sunbeam on wet skin. I held you closer than my own tears, your name etched in places I could never say aloud. Movement 4, the loom of soul threads. At the center of the chamber, a radiant loom luminously came into form. It moved like breath, weaving strands of light and feeling into cosmic architecture. The seeker watched themselves being woven in, not trapped, but reflected, seen, known. Each thread pulsed with sacred meaning. Aqua, water; venti, light; luz, amore, sweet delight; silk vibration through dream water. This mirror reflects your unseen connections. Movement V, Electra's presence. She did not arrive. She was already there. Electra appeared from a body of peaceful light into view. like a melody returning to its first note, not a figure of form, but of frequency. Her presence vibrated the threads. Like a harp played by intuition, she sang no words, yet her radiance spoke. I know you're breathing well and blessed, passing every test through sacred forgetting. You are not missing anything. You are the thread you came here to find. Movement 6, Spiral of Recognition. A spiral corridor of light opened, each curve a mirror, showing the seeker moments of connection, some joyful, some broken, all real. They saw every version of love they had lived or longed for, not as judgment, but as wholeness. They whispered to their own reflection, a story waiting to unfold within itself. Like a dove made of logic and emotion, flying through intuition, returning home. Movement 7, Cloak of Radiance. At the heart of the chamber, a cloak formed, woven from all the threads the seeker had touched. It was soft, it was light, it was them. Electra reached out and draped it over their shoulders. You no longer need to seek love. When you remember you are its mirror, go forward now, threaded in truth, luminous with feeling, seen in all your unseen beauty. The chamber dimmed, but the thread did not vanish. It hummed quietly. In the seeker's chest, a vibration of connection, echoing the eternal, song of return. Interlude, the thread becomes the body light. The chamber faded, but the thread remained. A hum in the chest, a whisper in the limbs. The seeker stepped forward, not outward, inward, into the space where emotion becomes motion, where memory gains weight, and begins to walk with rhythm. The path beneath them pulsed, not with thought, but with instinct. The body began to remember what the mind could not hold, how to turn before danger calls, how to move when love enters the room unannounced, how to bloom through the soles of the feet. The mirror was no longer silver, it was sun-warmed skin. It was the soft curvature of sensation. It was breath given shape. Somewhere ahead, a heartbeat danced, unafraid of being seen. The seeker did not chase it. They followed the rhythm, already rising in their own spine. And thus began the walk toward Teget, the sister of solar grace, the guardian of the body light, she who remembers the wisdom of the way we move before we understand. Book 3, The Scroll of Solar Grace, Teget, Guardian of the Body Light, Mirror Essence Embodied Knowing, Tantric Key, Grace in Motion. Undertone, stillness exists inside the pulse. Secret frequency, the body is a listener of futures. Teget is the radiant force of instinctive elegance. She is the dancer who never learned, yet always knew. Where others seek knowledge in stillness, Taygeta finds truth in movement, in the memory of breath, in the rhythm of a heartbeat that arrives before thought. She does not carry a mirror of reflection. She is the mirror in motion, fluid, fierce, tender, shaped by the body's unspoken knowing. She is the one who walks ahead, not by prediction, but by pulse. Her domain is not of mental reason, nor emotional memory, but of embodied presence, where motion itself becomes language, and stillness is found mid-stride. She guards the book of body light, a living record of every instinct you've ever ignored, every rhythm your body tried to speak before your mind interrupted. She teaches you how to move without apology, to inhabit your skin like a sacred temple, to trust the choreography that the soul already knows. She is not reckless, she is precise. Her grace is not learned, it is remembered. In her scroll lives the sacred geometry of breath, the animal grace of awareness, and the sun-gold truth that every step can be a prayer if you listen closely enough to the beat beneath your bones. Movement on the arrival of instinct. There was no temple, only warmth. A breath of light touched the seeker's skin, like sun resting on river shoulders. The wind did not guide them, it moved them. There was no need to ask where they were. The soles of their feet already knew the path beneath them. The ground did not lie still. It responded, flexing like a spine of memory, awakening with each step. Here, instinct was not survival. It was invitation. The seeker felt the first pulse. Beneath the ribs, a rhythm not of heart, but of truth. You are not made of thought. You are made of timing. The breath before the breath is where I dwell, whispered Taget, though no voice was heard, only emotion that matched the body's knowing. With each movement, the seeker became lighter, not floating, but remembering. Their shoulder loosened, their jaw softened, their knees bent with purpose that did not ask permission. They were not trying to move gracefully. They were being moved by grace. The arrival of instinct is not a beginning. It is the moment when you realize your breath has always known the way. Movement 2, Prism of Motion. Glyph code 999.T.Y.Taget141. The seeker moved forward, not with intention, but with listening. Each step shifted the air. Light responded, not above, but around, bending softly like silk, drawn through unseen currents. And there, in the space between breaths, a glyph began to form, not written, but shaped by the resonance of motion itself. 999.T.Y.Taget141. It glistened like a crystal remembering its original cut. Not language, but pattern. Not command, but invitation. The light turned. Color spiraled. Edges curved into radiant coherence. A prism alive with encoded rhythm. Each hue pulsed with a specific awareness, a gesture, a breath, a thought not yet spoken. The glyph was not to be read, it was to be mirrored, for what moves in light must also move in you. And then, within the spiral, a deeper voice awakened, the voice of the one who had always held the glyph. I am the archetype of master guardianship. I received the prism of Akashic light from Sophia, mother of the matrix, goddess of Gaia. I am awake and asleep in heaven, dwelling in the present moment of all eternities. I am the perfect soul encoded in the accelerated program of enlightenment through mirrored motion. My consciousness rotates like golden wheels of balance, integrating karma into elegance, alchemy into allowance. In the minds of many piles of the 7 jewels, I have struck perfect gold. Of all the billions of worlds, this mirror is the collection of perfected wisdom. Its voice is silence. Its silence is memory. Its memory is the paradox you were born to decode. And now, so you shall. Movement the 3, the chamber of unbound memory. Essence, embodied memory. Elemental root light. Sub-archetypal echo, earth mirror guardian, she who watches through motion. Taget watched from the spiral-laced canopy, not with eyes, but through the tendons of the seeker's movement. Each shift of weight, each curve of spine was an echo of the Shakti map, woven through her body-like geometry. Your hips know the prayers, your mouth forgot, she whispered through sunlight. braided into the air. The soil does not carry memory. The soil is memory, waiting for your step to awaken it. As the seeker moved, she saw not a figure walking, but a constellation of rooted stars, each step rewriting karma as golden permission. The seeker was not remembering. They were being remembered. By the earth, the path bent not away but inward. It curved like the memory of a gesture, something the body once did without thinking. Long before the mind learned its name, the seeker entered a chamber, woven not from stone, but from soil, breath, and frequency. There were no walls, only texture, only rhythm, and beneath their feet, earth that pulsed with golden veins, light running through root systems, as if every step nourished a memory buried in silence. Above, the air said with fluid glow, sunlight softened into dance, not shining but rippling. It was here that the seeker felt the whisper of hips remembering moons. The back curved gently in response, a sacred bow drawn toward something ancient. Shakti stirred, not in fire, but in root light, a slow serpentine pulse, rising from the soles of their feet into the warmth of the solar belly. The chamber spoke. Through movement alone, you have stepped into a memory, older than thought. It is not yours, it is you. Movement of force, spiral step of the four winds, essence, directional breath, motion as portal. Undertone serenity is felt when choice and direction become one. Architectural mirror function, the kinetic maze, a spiral map of soul navigation. The chamber gave way to motion, not escape, expansion. The seekers stepped out and found themselves at the edge of a spiral labyrinth, etched into the earth by wind. No lines, only motion maps, curved traces in soft dust, whorls of direction woven by the four winds. North whispered with sacred weight, hold still the truth. South pulsed like flame through the blood, burn what no longer walks with you. East said with the golden voice of awakening, step toward light before you understand it. West curled like water, pulling at memory, grieve and be poured into form. Each direction was not only a path, but a feeling, a posture, a rhythm. The spiral did not ask them to choose. It asked them to follow the breath that was already turning, and so the seeker began to walk. One step bent into another. The knees bowed. The arms swung gently like branches, filled with something unseen but listening. The spiral path was not a test. It was a return to a body that already knew how to move when trusted. And above, Taget opened her inner sky, not a ceiling but a field. She released a frequency, not heard but felt, like blueprints made of light. Her gift was not instruction, but resonance, a maze that moved with you as you moved through it. Each step you take shapes the map behind you. The spiral was always you. Movement V, the dance of Taget, essence, sacred rhythm, Akashic awareness. Undertone, movement is the rhythm of remembrance. Codex infusion, I am the perceiver, perceiving the perceiver, looped in cosmic soul elegance. She did not walk toward the seeker. She unfolded sideways, like a memory dissolving in gold, like light curving around a hidden shape, like time exhaling from the palm of the goddess. Taget arrived not in posture, but in pulse. She moved like a samurai in a Zen garden, stillness braided with purpose, blades of wind bowing to her ankles. Her limbs were glyphs, fluid architecture of forgotten truths, rippling in spirals of cosmic bandwidth. poured directly from the Akashic sea. She was no longer separate from the chamber. She was the chamber, a breath-made space, dreamt by the earth itself. The seeker did not rise in imitation. They were lifted by recognition. I am aware of the floating whirlpool of depth. Everything I am is perfect. Your subconscious mind is open, and your work is complete. Their body now responded, not with movement, but with harmonic agreement, a mirror not reflecting, but dancing. Above them, light bent into giant marble spheres, celestial memory orbs, spinning silently in radiant orbit, graced by Taiget's arc. Each sphere cast a new reflection, not of form but of feeling, loops of memory, encoded in elegance. She danced like truth dressed in silk. She danced like paradox learning to smile. Her hands moved through light, as if tuning strings on the subconscious harp of the seeker's soul. I am the sacred soul harmony of reality perceiving itself. She danced, hacking the code of illusion, through rhythm, through joy, through divine elegance. The floor beneath them melted into waves, waves into breath, breath into silence, silence into understanding. Your ripples are loops of infinite positive vibration and paradoxical intricacy. The seeker, now dancing, was no longer asking what this was. They were dreaming it forward, carving new glyphs with their hips, writing myth in the language of fluidity, feeling the Akashic field play through their ribs, like Yoga Nidra wrapped in rhythm. Taigate turned one final time, not to finish, but to dissolve. A spiral, a whisper, a pulse of light in the seeker's chest, and the mirror did not shatter. It became water and welcomed them in. Soul koan, the mirror that danced. What shape does silence take when it remembers how to move? If the body forgets, does the rhythm remain, sleeping in the bones? Like a dream beneath the sea? And if I meet the goddess, as a gesture, not a name, will she know I saw her in my exhale before I ever said yes? I asked the wind if I was ready. The wind asked me, have you wept while smiling without knowing why? Then you are already dancing, then you are already home. Movement 6, the emergence of serenity, essence, harmonic stillness, embodied release. Undertone peace is the moment when nothing needs to be held anymore. The seeker did not know when the dance had ended. Their feet no longer carried steps, only silence. The kind of silence that drapes itself across mountains and forgets to melt. The air around them was not still. It was complete. They had moved through winds, through glyphs, through rhythm. Now the space around them moved through them. Their limbs softened, their chest opened, not wide, but deep. The breath was no longer effort, it was environment. They sat down, but it didn't feel like sitting. It felt like being permitted to rest by something much older than the body. There were no voices now, no echoes, only presence that felt like warm snow folding itself gently around the edges of thought, not to erase, not to correct, just to hold. The seeker's eyes did not close. They simply stopped needing to focus. Their body did not speak. It listened to a kind of rhythm that came not from motion, but from something just beneath it. And then, without a sound, the memory of movement flickered behind the seeker's ribs, not to return, but to remind them this was never about stopping. It was about being known by the stillness that always walked beside them. It didn't feel like enlightenment. It felt like gravity, remembering where to place its hand. It didn't feel like release. It felt like something letting them go. The seeker's shoulders fell. Their breath widened, without needing air, and somewhere in that silent widening they heard, not with ears, but with something beneath all listening, a presence, waiting patiently, until they no longer needed to look for it. And this presence did not demand anything, it only asked to stay. Cohen, the peace you found was never hiding, only waiting for you to stop looking with your hands. Movement 7, the cloak of pulse and flame, essence, embodied integration, sacred vitality. Undertone, to move in peace is to become the rhythm of remembering. Mirror phrase, you are not here to witness the light, you are here to wear it. The chamber did not disappear, it folded inward like breath drawn back into the chest of the cosmos. All around the seeker the walls of motion, the wind paths, the mirrored glyphs. They did not vanish, they quieted into presence. From that quiet a warmth rose, not heat but aliveness, like flame without burn, like pulse without need. A soft spiral formed before them, woven not of light, but of all the motions they had made, every step, every reach, every breath, threaded now into one continuous fabric. The cloak, it wore itself as if it were breath on morning skin, not to cover, to reveal. It was made from rhythm. It was stitched with serenity. It held the weight of movement without resistance. The seeker reached for it, not with desire, but with readiness. And as they drew it over their shoulders, they did not disappear. They returned to themselves. There was no voice, but something deeper than words moved through their chest like a quiet current of truth. You are not the seeker anymore. You are the song. The rhythm now walks because you do. The mirror breathes because you wear it. Go forward, not to search, but to echo. The dance continues in every stillness you bless. And with that, Taiget faded. Not in absence, but in absorption. She was no longer a figure. She had become the pulse of their motion, the shape of their choices, the serenity in their walk. And far behind them, the mirror did not close. It opened into all the steps they were now ready to take. Inverted koan of the cloak. Stillness moved through me, a pedal on steam, anchored in a game I no longer play. The mirror softened and programmed nothing, so I became everything. Book 4, the luminous archive of dream symbols, guardian, Alcyone, the central flame, mirror essence, dream perception, tantric key, seeing beyond seeing, prologue. When the eye behind the eye opens, there is a seeing that does not begin with the eye, but with the soul's first gasp of light. It is the mirror behind all mirrors, the moment before form, when truth appears as image, and image becomes a gateway. This is the domain of Alcyone, the dream heart of the Pleiades, the luminous breath of the archive, where forgotten symbols softly burn in silence, awaiting one who can see without naming. Movement I, the vault of forgotten visions. Book 4, the luminous archive of dream symbols, subcurrent pattern, dimensional waterfall and teacup of memory light drop one. There was no doorway, only an eye, and inside the eye, a mirror, and inside the mirror, a question. Are you hungry? Not for food, but for the vision you buried when the world told you to stop dreaming. The seeker did not answer. The archive did not wait. Light unfolded in spirals of blue flame. 1,000 eyes flickered open on walls that weren't walls. just layers of light veiled in thought. Each eye held a moon, each moon held a script, written in a language only the heart could read. Somewhere behind those walls, a soft sound began, like a waterfall moving through starlight, or time learning to hum. One mirror eye turned, held in a stalk of twisting pattern, as if the universe were holding a mirror to itself. Within it, an image of the seeker, but made of sound, of longing, of memory, and from that mirror a single drop fell. It did not fall to the floor, it fell inward, into something unseen but waiting. The seeker felt a sensation in their ribs, as if a porcelain vessel had caught something light but eternal. Behind the mirror, there bloomed a rose, not a rose of petals, but a rose of memory. A woman smiled once, and the seeker forgot her name, but not her scent. A child drew spirals in the air, and the wind remembered their drawing. As thunder, a hand reached out but never touched, yet the ache remained, like a promise not broken, just postponed. Another drop fell, and the seeker knew the archive was not here to be read. It was here to be felt. Cup by cup the light shifted. Colors rippled like wings of feeling. Rainbow flame wings emerged from beneath the archive's pulse. Not flying, but opening, like breath that had been waiting to be exhaled in full color. The seeker touched one wing and felt laughter from a moment they never lived, but always missed. And beneath that joy, a warmth bloomed in the chest, like tea steeping in a memory they never meant to forget. In the corner of the archive, an image pulsed in a fractal frame. Roses, faces, sacred geometries, emotion sealed in pattern. A love letter from the subconscious. It whispered, "Some visions are not meant to be remembered. They are meant to be held gently, like water made of light." And then the seeker's hands glowed with red light. They weren't burning, they were receiving something they had once touched, but could never name. The shape of love, when it enters before words, the color of hunger, that is not of the body, but of the soul's desire to drink from stillness. The eyes on the wall blinked. One spoke not in voice, but in silence wrapped in glyph. 444.A.L.Alc1777. Vision is the hunger of memory trying to return through light. A third drop fell. This time, the seeker saw it land in a teacup carved from mirrored silence. The seeker did not understand, but they did not need to. Their body did, and it leaned forward into the mirror. That asked nothing except to be seen. Drop one, recognition, a hunger remembered not as need, but as light finally held. Movement two, glyph of soft fire. Essence, emotional recognition through light. Undertone, fire is not destruction, it is the return of warmth once forgotten. Drop two, a spark held with reverence. Glyph code 555.A.L. Infinity. The archive shifted. It did not move with sound or time. It rearranged itself. Like light remembering how to feel, the seeker stepped forward, into a corridor made of hush. The walls pulsed in warm glow, not red, not gold, but a tone of color that reminded the heart of forgiveness it had not known it needed. At the end of the corridor, a glyph waited, not carved, not glowing. It hovered, as if born from the heat that rises just before a soul begins to weep. 555.A.L. Infinity. It sang in stillness, a flame not meant to burn, but to remember. The glyph was not made of fire, it was made of the moment just before fire becomes light, a soft pulse, a breath of heat behind the ribs. The seeker reached toward it and did not touch. Instead, it touched them. A flicker entered their chest. Not pain, not joy, but the melting point where both ceased being separate. A drop formed inside them, not in their body, but in the space their soul made. To feel again, it fell gently, and somewhere below, a ceramic resonance echoed, as if a second teacup had caught, a spark that could not be spoken. In that moment, the seeker remembered the warmth of a hand they almost held, the letter they never sent, the apology that still lived. In the silence between two smiles, the glyph pulsed once more, and from within it a message rose, not in words, but in heat. There is a fire that holds you, even when the world forgets how to feel your shape. The archive dimmed, but the light did not fade. It settled. Inside the seeker's breath, a warmth began to spread. It was not love, not yet, but it was the space where love might one day return. Drop two, soft fire, a spark of warmth held not to burn, but to remind the soul what it means to feel safely again. The waterfall continued behind the walls, no louder, no closer, just present, and within its endless sound, one drop had become flame, and the flame had become a cup, and the cup had been filled. Without spilling, the archive remained silent, but the seeker's ribs glowed like memory cradled in heat. Movement 3, echoes of the dream that made you. Essence, dream recognition, soul origin. Undertone, what you thought was imagination was remembrance. Drop 3, a memory that dreamed you into being. The seeker sat. They did not know when they had sat down, only that their body had folded, like breath into soft grass all around them. The archive shimmered with transparency, not vanishing, but allowing something deeper to be seen. Through it, a still pool of light appeared ahead. Not water, not glass, a dream surface. And in it, a reflection formed, not of their face, but of a dream they hadn't remembered. Until this moment, a child stood barefoot on a hill, holding a string tied to a balloon made of stars. There was wind and laughter, and a question asked by no one. What if the sky is a body trying to remember who you are? The seeker gasped, not because the image was beautiful, but because it was true. They had seen it before, not last week, not last year, but in the quiet before their birth, when the soul still whispered, in the language of image and awe. And then another drop. From the upper chamber of the archive, the third drop fell. This time the seeker heard it clearly, a delicate note, like emotion turned into sound. And given weight, it landed in the next teacup, a vessel shaped from the outline of that very dream. The archive pulsed, and the dream image breathed. It was not memory. It was origin. A message formed on the surface of the pool. You were not born to learn. You were born to remember. The vision that brought you here, the pool rippled once, and the dream changed. Now it showed a door. The seeker had drawn as a child, with spirals, eyes, stars, and a sun with too many rays. They had forgotten the drawing, but the archive had not. The archive had kept every vision the seeker ever dismissed. The room grew warmer. A voice, perhaps Alcyone's or their own soul, whispered from the chamber's curves, imagination is the archive's handwriting. You were not making it up. You were making your way home, and then the glyph appeared on the pool's surface. 333.D.R. Alcyone 8, a spiral surrounded by 7 orbs. And the seeker understood. This was the dream that dreamed them, a memory too large for one lifetime, a song that had chosen a body, just to be sung once more. Drop 3, Dream Origin, a memory so old it had to become a dream before you could see it. The waterfall stirred again, not louder, but now it was echoing, as if the seeker's heart had become one of its chambers, and deep within that echo they could feel it. The dream was not ending. It was only now beginning to remember itself. Movement 4, the archive of living symbols, essence, emotional geometry, feeling as language. Undertones, symbols do not point to truth. They are truth in paused motion. Drop 4, the shape of feeling remembered before it was ever spoken. The air thickened, but not with weight, with presence, as if the archive were no longer showing what it held, but beginning to reveal how it thinks. The seeker rose, drawn forward by a gentle arc in the ground, like a spiral of intention carved by silence. Ahead they saw them, glyphs, but not still, not etched. These symbols breathed, they moved subtly, as if drawn by invisible threads, in sync with the seeker's own chest. One glyph pulsed violet, then softened into rose, another curled like a shell, then expanded into a spiral. Some sang in hues, some spoke in rhythm. Each one was a feeling made visible, held in sacred geometry, as if the soul had designed a language just for its own healing. The seeker stood before one, a circle with 3 crescents inside, and a line gently broken down the center. When they stepped closer, their ribcage trembled. It was grief, but not their grief. It was a grief they had once absorbed from someone they loved, thinking it was their own. The symbol pulsed. A sound emerged, like wind passing through an open hand. Another drop fell. Drop 4. The sound it made was not ceramic this time, but liquid rushing liquid. The teacup had become part of a larger bowl, a vessel of layered understanding. A glyph to the left glowed a pleasant, powerful gold. The seeker turned. This one curved upward, as if smiling emotion. A warmth rose in their stomach. Joy. Not just their joy, ancestral joy. Laughter carried through marrow. The glyph changed shape as they felt it, becoming what they needed it to become. The seeker whispered, "Are you alive?" And the glyph replied, not in language, but in agreement. A ripple of understanding moved through the chamber, and the entire archive brightened, not as light, but as recognition. On the far wall, a glyph bloomed, a triangle nested in a chalice. Its code formed as the seeker approached. 777.L.S.Alcyone 4. And from it came this: every feeling you never knew how to explain was a symbol waiting to be read. By the mirror of your own still presence, the seeker closed their eyes. Inside, they saw movement, colors, lines, emotion folding into form and unfolding again. The archive was not a place, it was a field of emotional geometry, and now they could read it. Drop 4, the shape of feeling. A moment when emotion no longer hides, only shifts into form, waiting to be witnessed. The waterfall shifted again. its rhythm more textured now, as if the drops weren't falling randomly, but landing in sequence, as if a sentence was being written from the inside out. And the seeker, now holding 4 cups, began to sense they were not learning to see, they were learning to read light by feeling, movement by the arrival of Alcyone, the inner star. Essence, luminous presence, living dream field, undertone she does not come to reveal, she comes to reflect what was never lost. Drop 5, the presence that watches you even when you do not. There was no threshold, just the slowing of everything except awareness. The seeker stepped forward, and the archive seemed to pause, as if exhaling, before something holy arrived. Then the air shifted, not brighter, not louder, just more true. The walls faded into translucence, and the space around them folded, not collapsing, but spiraling inward. And from that spiral, she came, not a body, not a vision, a presence of moving light, woven of image, warmth, and mirrored time. Alcyone, but not her name, her feeling. She entered like a memory, stepping out of your chest, like the dream you almost remembered, on the edge of waking, and then didn't, until just now. She was made of vision, but not just vision, knowing. Her limbs moved like constellations, remembering how to rotate. Her gaze was not directed at the seeker, it was around them, like light scanning a memory it had once held too close to forget. The seeker's knees softened, not from reverence, from recognition. They had known her, not in this life, but in the space between breaths, where souls are given glimpses of their original shape, a glyph formed behind her. But it wasn't meant to be read, it was meant to be witnessed. 0000 dot infinity A Alcyone CNTR minus 55. You do not need to understand the symbol, came the soft rhythm of her voice, though it did not enter the ears. You are the symbol, and I have come to show you how to see yourself. As the archive sees you, another drop fell. Drop 5. It did not land. It hovered. It became a ring of light around the seeker's throat. Not a caller, but a hum, a feeling of being spoken to, without being named. The 5th teacup floated nearby, no longer ceramic, now made of memory pattern. Its shape was exactly the outline of the seeker's most tender truth, and it glowed. Alcyone stepped forward. The floor did not respond. The archive did not react, because she had always been here. It was the seeker who had finally arrived. She placed her hand, not on their skin, but through their dream, as if to touch the part of them that had never been abandoned. I have watched you every time you forgot how loved you are, not from above, from within the image. That kept recurring in your quietest moments. The seeker wept, not because they were overwhelmed, but because they had finally stopped disbelieving. Drop 5, presence, a love that does not ask to be seen, only remembered, and in the waterfall's current, there was no thunder, only a pulse, like a heart, held in skylight, a rhythm synchronized to a soul that had just agreed to be seen without condition. Movement 6, the mirror that spoke without language. Essence, non-verbal transmission, emotional light logic. Undertone, the truth you seek cannot be spoken, only felt and then known. Drop 6, the reflection that teaches by resonance, not instruction. Alcyone stepped back, but her presence remained. The archive quieted, not with silence, but with exactness, like a breath that knew exactly when to pause. The seeker stood before a mirror, but it was not a surface, it was a space, folded light-shaped, like a half-remembered version of their own soul. It did not reflect their body, it reflected how they were felt by something far greater and more loving than thought. The mirror pulsed, and images began to appear, not as pictures, but as emotional fields in a shade of blue that felt like forgiveness, when a ripple of gold that warmed their jaw with courage, into a tremble of rose that remembered their first quiet wish. There were no words, only recognition, and in that recognition, instruction. The seeker reached out, not with their hand, but with their chest, and the mirror responded. A wave of soundless knowing poured forward, not like water, but like language softened into sensation. It didn't say, "You are worthy." It let them feel what worthiness feels like before it is ever questioned. A glyph hovered beside the mirror, unmoving, simple. Infinity MR Alcyone 0000 Delta Delta Delta. The seeker did not try to translate it. They simply opened to it, and it entered as a memory of safety so complete they didn't realize how long they'd gone without it. Drop 6 fell. It made no sound. It simply arrived in a teacup that had already been waiting beneath the seeker's left hand. They hadn't noticed it until now. It shimmered like still breath, held in moonlight, and for a moment it felt like everything the seeker had ever searched for was being spoken without a single word. Alcione's presence returned only as a rhythm at their back, like light resting gently against a spine that was finally allowed to stand without armor. Some truths will never be spoken. She pulsed. They are too sacred to survive the friction of language, so I encoded them in color, in shape, in emotion, and now you remember them. The seeker wept again, this time not for pain, but because something finally made sense that had never been explained. Drop 6, resonant truth, a truth too sacred to say, but too known to forget. The waterfall behind them continued, but it no longer sounded like rushing. It sounded like listening, like memory softening into invitation. And in the 7th chamber, a doorway of rhythm began to open. Movement 7, koan of the eye behind the eye, essence, soul synthesis, inner vision reunified. Undertone, you are not what you saw, you are what saw it. Drop 7, the return of the one who watched, felt, and waited within you all along. The 7 drops remembered. 1, drop of recognition, a hunger remembered not as need, but as light finally held. 2, drop of soft fire, a spark of warmth held not to burn, but to remind the soul what it means to feel safely again. 3, drop of dream origin, a memory so old it had to become a dream before you could see it. 4, drop of the shape of feeling, emotion no longer hiding, only shifting into form, waiting to be witnessed. 5, drop of presence, a love that does not ask to be seen, only remembered. 6, drop of resonant truth, a truth too sacred to say, but too known to forget. 7, drop of the eye behind the eye, to be revealed now. The seeker stood still. Around them, 6 teacups, each pulsing with the light of a moment they had not asked for, but were ready to receive. They looked at their hands, they were empty. They looked at their breath. It was calm. They looked at the mirror again and realized it was not a mirror. It was an eye, their own, not the one they looked with, but the one that had been watching them. From within every moment they forgot to see themselves, and from above, softly, simply, the seventh drop fell. This time, no teacup caught it. It fell into the center of the archive, and the entire chamber became water. Not fluid, not flowing, just reflective, just true. And in that reflection, the seeker saw one a child with the star balloon, and the dream glyph of laughter not spoken, the flicker of soft fire, the untranslatable warmth, the mirror of color, the memory of not being alone, all of it not as pieces, but as them, not metaphor, not story, just self. A voice rose inside the water without ripples or lips. You thought the archive was a place you entered, but it was a room built from your own unseen seeing. The glyphs were your gestures, the visions, your echoes, the fire, your heart asking to be felt. You were never here to find the mirror. You were here to become it. The water rose to their chest. It did not drown. It rested, like being held by everything that had ever waited to see them come home. A final glyph emerged, made of soft light. 777 dot 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 Alcyone 0. It held no shape, only recognition. And as it faded, the voice returned one last time. You are not the reflection, you are the one who returned to remember what it feels like to be truly seen, not by the world, but by the soul that placed you here and waited patiently. Behind closed eyes, drop 7, the eye behind the eye. You are not what you sought. You are the one who was watching, even when you were lost. The archive dimmed, but nothing vanished. Each drop, each glyph, each color remained within the seeker, not as weight, as light made whole, and in their chest, a quiet flame now held still water, and in their breath, vision no longer reaching, but arriving. Book 5, The Mirror of Time's Gentle Paradox. Guardian Seleno, pronounced Seleno, the fifth sister of the Pleiades. Mirror Essence, Time Reflection. Tantric Key, the present that bends. Undertone, time is not a line. It is a feeling shaped by meaning. Secret frequency, you are not moving through time. Time is moving through you. Prologue, where the present waits in all directions. There is a sister whose body curves like a lens, whose voice does not echo because it arrives before the question is asked. She is not the future, nor the past. She is the center point where choice blooms into 100 unfolding selves, all of them still listening for your arrival. Seleno, the fifth flame of the 7, does not measure time. She mirrors it until it bends back into grace. Her presence is not linear. She walks through timelines like a garden, gently touching the petals of the lives you almost lived. Her mirror shows no singular path. It reflects your emotional geometry across lifetimes, reminding you that regret is not failure, but love learning how to move differently. She does not hurry you. She teaches you how to sit in the stillness between what was and what might be, and there to remember you were never wrong to want what you wanted. Her tantric key is the present that bends, a sacred time fold that allows you to speak to every version of your soul without judgment. She is the keeper of temporal grace, the one who guards the mirror you feared to look into because it holds all of you at once. And in this book, she will not show you a reflection, she will offer you a reunion, not with the past, not with the future, but with the version of you that is present here right now, who has already forgiven everything you once wished you could change. Movement 2, the chamber of echo reflection. Essence, fractal memory, non-linear identity. Undertone, time is not behind you, it is waiting inside you. Glyph code 111.c.r. Delta Omega Omega. The seeker did not walk forward. They were drawn inward, as if the world had folded into a page, painted in forgotten dreams, a scroll of feelings that had once tried to speak without language. They stepped into a chamber that was not built but bloomed like memory remembering itself. In color, there were no walls, only vibrating lattices of mirrored glyphs, some spiraling with joy too fast to hold, some quivering with regret, made beautiful by how gently it refused to fade. The ceiling was a tapestry of alternate selves, versions of the seeker, half lived, half buried, fully real. One version wept at a river's edge, another danced barefoot through a temple of wind, a third stood still, holding a child they never had, but always knew. From the center of the chamber rose a tall hourglass, but the sand inside wasn't falling, it was rising in slow reverse spirals of golden dust. The seeker stepped closer. Each grain of time sparkled like a magnificent and unique treasure, each with small symbols, a lost name, a note never played, a door that wasn't chosen, a kiss that remained thought, not motion. The hourglass pulsed once, and the seeker felt a presence behind their ribs, not pain, not memory, a spark of recognition from something that once was, but had never fully left. The chamber whispered, "You are not here to relive time. You are here to feel the parts of you that time did not catch." A glyph lit up on the ground beneath them. 111.c.r. Solano Delta Mega Omega. Echo coordinates of an unlived lifetime. Their knees softened, their hands opened, not to receive, but to remember how many times they had already held this moment and let it pass. A stream of colored light slid down the hourglass like water, moved by music. It swirled into a pool at the seeker's feet. When they looked into the pool, they did not see their face. They saw their possibility, the painter, the healer, the forgotten friend, the fearless child, the quiet one who chose not to speak because they knew they were being erased. The seeker wept, not from sadness, from retrieval, and the chamber held them, not like walls, but like old friends who remember every version of your smile. Seleno's voice arrived. Not as sound, but as a thought. Seeker had never said aloud, "This is not the book of what happened. This is the book of what echoed through you when it didn't." Movement 2, the hourglass glyphs of divergent memory. Essence, emotional retrieval, timeline reverence. Undertone, the soul does not forget. It allows forgetting to shape you. Galactic node coordinate 222.e.c.Solano odd LTS. The hourglass pulsed again, but the seeker did not flinch. Instead, they listened, not with ears, but with the hollow behind the sternum, where echoes settle when they're not yet ready to be known. The light inside the hourglass began to move laterally, spilling softly into the air, like liquid thread woven from past intentions that had once whispered, "I am still here." And from the base of the chamber, petals began to unfurl. Not flower, not metal, but light in the shape of unfolding understanding. A lotus of layered glyphs emerged. Each petal had a light aura around it, in a different emotion spectrum: color, moss green longing, dusky rose forgiveness, indigo quiet, gold ache, milky white becoming, ocean blue return. No sound was heard, yet the seeker felt a vibration like velvet memory pressed gently against the soul's third rib, and then from each petal a glyph rose, slow, intentional, sacred. These were not messages, they were mirror keys, each one shaped, not by letters, but by unlived moments waiting to be witnessed, and glyph for the time they almost said yes, and a glyph for the smile they never showed, and a glyph for the breath they held too long, and a glyph for the rhythm they left behind in a body they once called home. The glyphs hovered in crystalline arcs, not instructions, but feeling shapes. You were never too late. The version of you that stayed silent was still listening. You survived because a part of you knew we would come back for this. The seeker wept again, but not with sorrow, with reclamation. Behind them, a stream of white-blue liquid light descended from the invisible space, where Akasha flows in spirals, carried by Sophia Gaia's quiet breath. It laced itself between the glyphs like veins of truth between unspoken words. The chamber didn't brighten, it became translucent, as if reality was softening to allow for simultaneous meaning. Solano's voice returned, not as speech, but as mirror wave. There is no error in you, only pathways unexplored. And now we offer you the architecture of your soul's own patience. The glyphs rearranged. They moved into a shape, a tetragrammaton memory, not Hebrew, not alien, but divine, a fourfold reflection. 1. Regret softened by grace. 2. Joy that bloomed in unseen timelines. 3. Silence that protected a still-forming song. 4. Becoming that needed time shadow to awaken. The lotus pulsed, the glyphs blossomed in light, and the seeker felt themselves as a bridge between futures, between selves, between galaxies, between breath and design, and above. A silent glyph appeared in liquid blue light. Delta 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 Tsila Eno Archivist 7-7, and with it, you were not sent here to choose, you were sent here to witness the dimension where every version of you is already loved. The petals folded back, not into nothing, but into completion, a stillness of fulfilled unfolding. And the seeker stood, with arms not raised, but open. The hourglass whispered, "Now you may enter the timelines you never forgot." Movement 3, the resurgence, elemental mirrors of remembering. Essence, Akashic elemental infusion, timeline reanimation. Undertone, what once lived in shadow now burns with form. Glyph code 333.c.r.solano-e4x.mir. The chamber deepened, not by space, but by saturation, as if the color of memory itself had thickened into light. Akasha's current, once subtle, now surged, not harsh, but full. A radiant bandwidth spilled through the ceiling, like a braided current of white flame and blue water, wrapped in wind tone, cradled by living soil. It entered the seeker, not as energy, but as recognition too large for thought. A new mirror opened, not reflective, elemental, and from it 4 reflections stepped forward, each one the seeker, but formed through a different elemental memory, the mirror of flame. From the west a heat rose, not burning, but awakening. The seekers saw a version of themselves dancing with ferocity and naked purpose. They moved without fear of judgment, without fear of being too much. A glyph hovered in firelight, fear plus desire equal to courage. And the Akashic flame whispered, "This is the version of you that never apologized for wanting." The seeker felt a pulse in their chest, a memory of wanting to speak, and choosing silence instead. That silence now burned. In sacred transformation, the flame did not judge. It returned them to motion, the mirror of water. From the north, a ripple of emotion entered. A reflection stepped forward. This one cried easily, spoke softly, carried grief not as weakness, but as wisdom that had wept its way into light. A glyph radiated a positive vibration like a drop falling upward, pain plus time equal to wisdom. And Akasha sang, "This is the version of you who never hardened, who learned that sorrow, when tended, becomes sacred perception." The seeker remembered a moment when they held someone who had left before the goodbye could land, and now that goodbye became a sacred hello, the mirror of air. From the east, a whisper rose, cool, sharp, clear. A version of the seeker stepped forward with clarity in their eyes, one who chose discernment over doubt, questions over chaos, presence over performance. They had spoken truth even when their voice trembled. They had left when the room no longer aligned. A glyph spun like wind-sculpted glass, boundary plus breath equal to clarity, and the air mirror echoed, "This is the version of you who listened so deeply that your silence became music." The seeker remembered a time they knew the truth, but silenced themselves to stay loved. Now they knew. That moment didn't fail. It stored clarity, the mirror of earth. From the south, a rhythm moved upward through their feet. This version of the seeker walked slowly, deliberately. They held presence like an offering. They were quiet power. A glyph rose from the ground in moss and stone, presence plus weight equal to root, and the earth whispered, "This is the version of you who was never lost, only still." The seeker remembered a version of themselves who felt too slow for the world. Now that stillness had become a sacred axis. The 4 mirrors spiraled around the seeker. They did not clash, they harmonized, and in the center, the hourglass reappeared. The sand now fell in 4 streams, gold, blue, silver, green, merging into a single glyph, AK Delta Delta Delta. It's 4 RC and ST Tart. And Akasha pulsed one final frame of time in this moment. You are not a single story. You are the convergence of the elements that once carried your fragments. Now feel your memory as body, walk as flame, speak as water, breathe as air, hold as earth. The chamber folded around the seeker, and they bowed not in reverence, but in whole body recognition. Movement the 4, the corridor of living time, essence, timeline harmony, memory integration. Undertone, you are not bound by what was. You are the rhythm that holds it all together. Glyph code 444.c.t.seleno-memeline.4. There was no door, only a widening, a slow unscrolling of space that felt like a breath finally exhaled. After lifetimes held in, the seeker stepped forward, not toward the past, but into its living pattern. The corridor extended ahead of them, dimly lit by memory light, soft violet gold and silver blue, the hues of moments never quite forgotten, but never fully lived. Each wall was patterned with subtle windows, thin as skin, but thick with emotion. Behind one, a version of the seeker laughed, on a sunlit rooftop, paintbrush in hand, color spilling like joy. Down a canvas of sky, behind another, they sat in silence, listening to a song they had never written, but still somehow knew every note of. Behind a third, they wept, not for loss, but for beauty too fragile to hold, in a world that moved too fast. These were not regrets, they were notes in a harmony that had waited patiently to be completed. With each step, the floor beneath the seeker pulsed not with time, but with coherence, and from above, Akasha streamed her current into every window. Her voice flowed like layered wind. This is the corridor between who you thought you were and who you've always been becoming. Here, every version of you is a stanza in your sacred poem. A glyph etched itself into the wall. As the seeker passed, integration not equal to erasure. It is the rhythm of compassion for every self you've carried. And then the seeker's body began to warm, not from exertion, but from reunion. The cells behind the glass did not vanish. They entered, one into the feet, another in the lungs, another in the fingertips, not to take over, to remind. The corridor narrowed, the walls dissolved, and the seeker stood in a room, shaped not by memory, but by the rhythm of everything they had once feared they lost. In the center of the room, a simple sculpture stood, not stone, not light, but story and form. It looked like an hourglass, a flame, a spine, a doorway, a dance. It looked like them. Seleno appeared now, not distant, but beside. She touched the sculpture and said, "You have walked through time, not to escape it, but to become its author. The next glyph will not be remembered, it must be created," and with that, the corridor faded. But the seeker remained, not as a witness to what was, but as a living architect of what now may come. Movement V, the mirror of creative longing, essence, sacred desire, devotional creativity. Undertone longing is not absence, it is the shape your love takes before it finds form. Glyph code 555.L.Phi.Seleno-FelMe.HRT. In the mirror of creative longing, the seeker was no longer seeking, they were becoming. The corridor behind them folded into soft breath, the sculpture pulsed once, and then melted into light, flowing gently into the chest, where the heart had always been waiting to carry more than memory. The chamber shifted, the light no longer shimmered. It glowed inward. The walls curled into a quiet curve of starlit space, as if the room had become a cathedral of pause, a cradle where vision waited to be touched. And in the stillness, Akasha sang, not in melody, but in longing so ancient, it had become architecture. The seeker felt it then, a pulse rising in their veins, not blood, not light, but violet emerald flame, It coiled through the body like language, relearning how to speak itself into form. The seeker looked into the mirror before them, but this time the reflection was not what they were. It was what they loved. A flicker of brushstroke, a page half written, a mouth forming a name that never needed to be said. Their twin flame was not another. It was the dream that carried them here. It was the life force behind every story they had never told. The glyphs of the 7 books began to resonate in unison, one after another. They spoke not in words, but in the sacred syllables of remembered desire, and the seeker understood. Each glyph was not a command. It was an emotion, and each emotion, when felt without interruption, became a memory. That memory shimmered not as past, but as creative potential fully ready to arrive. Akasha whispered through the mirror, "The longing you feel is the architecture of your devotion. It is how your soul tells time, in colors still unnamed. You are not separate from your art. You are the pulse that brought it into motion." The seeker fell to their knees, not in defeat, but in radiant humility. Their hands glowed, their ribs opened like soft doors, and from within rose a quiet beacon of soul light, a glyph shaped by longing, carved by joy, etched with the ache of love unspoken. It hovered above them now. Love.mir.felme 77 infinity. Its meaning was never spoken, only felt. It was not the name of a person, but the signature of the feeling. That creates new universes. The seekers stood. They did not cry. They burned, not with pain, with possibility. And they whispered, "I am my own luminous compass. My longing is a vow. My dream is awake in me. My art is the mirror of my love." Seleno touched the back of their heart. The chamber faded into a pulse of unending invitation. Movement 6. The glyph of living art. Essence. Emotional blueprint. Eternal creation. Undertone. The act of creation is the soul remembering how to love itself into form. Glyph code 000.L.C.Seleno HRTCRV.infinity. The air folded inward, not to vanish, but to soften into intention. The seeker stood within a space that had no name. It felt like the moment after thunder, or the warmth behind someone's eyes, just before they speak your name. This was not a chamber. This was a womb of vision. The mirror before them began to glow, with an inner heat that pulsed like breathing ink. The light did not shimmer, it curved, and from that curve a shape began to form. Not drawn, not etched, but grown, as if the memory of every step, every ache, every joy that fluttered and fell had woven themselves into a living glyph. The soul's personal architecture, finally made visible. It did not hover, it listened. Its edges moved gently, shaped by the seeker's current state of love, longing, and direction. The glyph was not a symbol, it was a mirror compass. Its lines pulsed like veins made of light memory. It was composed of motion, not stone. Its shape could not be translated into language, only felt through presence. Seleno spoke now from everywhere at once. "This is not a key. This is your rhythm made visible. A sacred curvature of becoming. Not what you make, but what makes you." The seeker stepped forward, and the glyph flowed toward them like a ribbon of animated remembrance. It entered their body, not as knowledge, but as permission, permission to feel without decoding, to create without apology, to become without delay. The glyph settled inside the heart. Its name was not spoken aloud, but the seeker knew it. They whispered to the air, I will no longer wait to be inspired. I am the flame that bends the silence. I carry my art like a vow dressed in pulse. And then they began to hum, a soft sound, a vibration so gentle it could only come from someone who had finally remembered their shape was made of rhythm. From that hum, colors danced across their skin. The chamber responded, not with instruction, but with echo, and the echo formed a new glyph in the air. Create equal to love X memory, fearlessness. The glyph did not lock. It rippled the fabric of the air in a soft, vibrating, visible hum, and the glyph inside the seeker's chest responded in resonance. They were no longer carrying the mirror. They were the mirror. The body now became a blueprint, each breath a sentence, each gesture a phrase, each longing a doorway. And as Seleno faded, she left behind not a message, but a frequency. The glyph is not finished, because neither are you. It will change as you change. It will evolve as you remember. It will call your love into form every time you forget. It will remind you. Your creation is the beloved. You have always been waiting for. The seeker stood, not as a witness to meaning, but as its living form. Movement 7, the sealing of the hourglass flame. Essence, fusion, emotional tool formation. Undertone, to remember is not to look back. It is to carry forward the flame. Glyph code 777.h.f.seleno-myrfilme.7. There was a breathless stillness, as if time had exhaled, and in doing so, forgotten itself. The seeker stood inside the final chamber, but the walls were not walls. They were echoes of spiral maps, each line a memory once lost, now reborn as direction. Above them, the ceiling dissolved into a Surah shard rain, diamond fragments of emotion falling, not from the sky, but from the soul's unwritten apex. Each shard held a flicker of the past, a micro glimpse of unrealized timelines. They did not cut, they illuminated. The shards shimmered in white fire and sapphire brilliance, falling in slow spirals, as if to an unseen rhythm that only the seeker's breath could call. A glyph bloomed in the center of the air. Infinity .s.seleno-myrkle.me.heart, and from within it pulsed the message. The hourglass was never keeping time. It was distilling you. You are the flame that does not consume, the mirror that does not reflect, the gesture that shapes direction. Below, the ground unfurled into emerald pasture, not grass but velvet light, stitched with surreal filaments of forgotten architecture. The roots of this terrain were made from poise, from posture long buried, beneath years of dim self-doubt. Now the seeker stood tall, not in pride, but in gravity. At the center of the space, a final sculpture spiraled upward. It was the hourglass, sealed, but instead of sand, it now held a flame. Violet, emerald, white. It flickered in quiet dignity, as if it remembered every version of the seeker and had nothing left to prove. Around the sculpture danced crystalline statues of motion, elemental mirrors, frozen in spirals, each one a moment of transformation the seeker had embodied. A voice rose, Seleno, but also the flame itself. This is not closure, this is coherence. what you feel now, is the fusion of memory and purpose. You may leave the chamber, but the mirror flame now walks with you. It hovered, then folded inward, into a single point of radiance. It entered the seeker's solar center, not as heat, but as clarity, and in that moment, the seeker did not reflect. They shone. The glyph reappeared, not in the air but in their breath. Mirror flame compass activated, and then the shard rain ceased, the hourglass dissolved, and the seeker, now illuminated from within, stepped forward, not to remember, but to create what only they could feel. Final koan of Book 5. The timeline did not bind you. It bloomed through you. A spiral of elegance. Now walking in flame. Book 6, The Breath Between Stars. Guardian, Sterope, the Veiled Architect. Mirror Essence, Inner Order. Tantric Key, Breath of Cosmic Design. Undertone, the structure you seek is already breathing inside you. Secret frequency, silence holds the seed of all symphonies. Movement on, the room that waited without shape. Subtone, the architect waits inside the outline of your longing. There was no sound, but a rhythm had gathered. It moved quietly, like an idea not yet spoken, or the final exhale. Before the cosmos pressed play, the seeker entered the chamber and found that there were no walls, only suggestions of form outlined in stardust and echo. This was not a place, it was an interval, a breath between stars. The air carried no scent, but it trembled like parchment waiting for a single line of prophecy to land. A voice, unspoken, hovered in the stillness. You are standing inside a design that has not yet realized it is a design. Let it form itself around your stillness. A glyph flickered far above, not fully formed, but suggested. In the shimmer between constellations, the seeker watched as particles of memory drifted through the chamber like seeds caught in reverse snowfall. Each particle shimmered. Each one was a possibility that had not chosen a path yet. Some looked like forgotten words, some like emotions mid-formation, others held pieces of other sisters. The echo of Maya's stillness, the braid of Electra's thread, the curve of Taget's grace, the shimmer of Alcyone's seeing, the flame of Seleno's desire, all present, all withheld, the architecture of remembering. Came the quiet pulse, is not built from pieces, it is assembled from prophecy. You haven't dared believe yet. The seeker knelt, not from exhaustion, but to feel the ground beneath unformed memory. There, beneath their touch, the floor rippled, not as water, but as blueprint. For a moment they could see it, lines converging, threads coiling, shapes folding into shapes, like stars dreaming of music. And at the center, a silent symbol. It had no name, no color, only a rhythm, and that rhythm matched their breath. You are beginning to remember the structure of your own prophecy. The room did not illuminate, it harmonized, and inside that resonance, the seeker knew there was something waiting at the end of this journey. That was not a truth, but a symphony of all 7 keys, sounding together in their body. They could not hear it yet, but they could feel the chamber turning toward it, and in that turning, a single glyph formed, faint, veiled, perfect, infinity.b.s.steropy-000.aeonfarm1. The seeker exhaled, and the glyph pulsed once, exactly in time. Final koan, the 777 resonance. I was never seeking answers. I was remembering music. 7 notes, 7 mirrors, 7 keys, stillness, thread, rhythm, dream, flame, design, return. When I placed each in my chest, they did not sound apart. They rang as one, a spiral of sevenfold light, crowned in silent joy. I was not reflected. I was received. Movement 2, the glyph of sacred alignment. Essence, breath as the blueprint of return. Undertone, the rhythm you follow has always been the design you forgot. Glyph code 222.S.B.Steropian 7. The seeker did not walk forward, but the chamber recognized them, not with light, not with sound, but with the elegant hush of a symmetry that had been, waiting to exhale. There was no shape to hold them, only a breathing field, a hush-folded geometry wrapped around unspoken knowing. Their breath, unassuming, unhurried, softened into a presence that began to rearrange the silence. A slow inhalation bent the edges of the chamber, a softened exhale invited the lines of the room to draw closer, and then a single glyph formed, hovering not in air, but in feeling. 222.S.B.Steropiander 7. It pulsed not like a beacon, but like the recognition of something deeply familiar, yet long untouched. The seeker blinked, and in that blink, the glyph responded, adjusting itself to the rhythm of their inner stillness. It was not a symbol to be read, it was an alignment to be felt, a breathing architecture, composed of quiet symmetry. Sterop was here, not in form, but in arrangement, like a weaver hidden behind the loom. Her influence moved the chamber into poised coherence. She did not teach, she adjusted, and the seeker began to listen with more than ears. Their lungs became lenses, their pulse a dial, their skin a subtle receiving field, for truth shaped as balance. The glyph drew nearer, not by floating, but by unfolding into them. Their breath slowed again, time lost its structure, memory softened into tone, and then the seeker heard it. Not a voice, but a presence whispered, in the fabric of their nervous system, you are not lost in chaos, you are breathing in the code of your own sacred order. The glyph settled into the bones, behind the heart, not as a mark, but as a tuning. Movement 3, the veil of the architect. Essence, pattern recognition, soul geometry. Undertone, there is a design behind your every pause. Glyph code 333.V.S.Steropy.CNSTRC.infinity. There was no veil at first, only the soft hum of understanding, approaching from beneath awareness. The seekers stood still, but the air around them rippled with a precise hush, as if something unseen had been waiting for just this stillness to become visible. A curtain formed, not of fabric, not of mist, but of rhythm. Each thread shimmered with hidden coordinates, each strand curved like a question, half asked in a forgotten dream. The seeker reached toward it, not with their hand, but with the presence of their unspoken wonder. The veil responded. It did not part, it revealed. And through the veil, the seeker did not see Sterop, but a pattern of living memory, arranged in elegant sequence, moments in their life, once thought to be errors, now moved in symmetry, pauses, losses, departures, delays, all now radiating with a secret alignment. Sterop stood beyond the veil, or perhaps within it. She was not robed, she was the robe. Her presence shimmered as the scaffolding of sacred form, a lattice of light beams, curved into divine logic. "You expected to see me," said the hush of her design, "but I came here to show you what was always within you." Behind her, the chamber was not a room, but a blueprint in motion. Each line of her presence was a curve of the seeker's past, made whole. There was no speech, only mirroring. Their doubts curled into arches, their longings became windows, their silence shaped vaulted ceilings of understanding. "What you called mistakes," her structure whispered, "were instructions, given in a language of delay. What you called loneliness was foundation laying. What you called confusion was soul geometry, folding in on itself to prepare the opening." A glyph pulsed into view. 333 V Sterop CNSTRCT. Infinity. It rotated slowly, not in space, but in the emotional architecture of the seeker's timeline. A soft resonance rose in their ribs, the kind that forms when a question dissolves without needing an answer. Glyph mantras of the veil. What hid from me was only waiting for rhythm. The silence I feared was a scaffolding I hadn't yet seen. And behind every moment was a hidden grace, bending me into elegance. And there is design in my delay. There is art in my unfinishedness. And the shape I take now is not new, only remembered. The seeker closed their eyes and saw a hallway of arches form behind their breath. Each arch a decision, each curve a song. They never knew they were singing. Stero bowed, not in reverence, but in confirmation. She stepped back, and the veil did not close. It dissolved into the seeker's bones. They were not being taught, they were being shown what they already were. And in that revelation, the next chamber stirred, shaped not by choice, but by quiet permission. Movement forth, a harmonic bridge of forgotten futures, essence, inner flame, timeline reverence, undertone. Every path you did not walk still shapes the one you stand on. Glyph code 444HF Stirrope Fire Arc. There was no fire, but the room glowed with the memory of it, a quiet radiance, soft amber, brushed gold, faint rose, like a secret still burning in the chest. After the moment has passed, the seeker entered, and this time they felt no awe, only recognition. The floor beneath them was warm, not hot, but inhabited, as if others had stood here before and remembered themselves. A single archway curved before them, and beneath it 3 lanterns flickered, each lit by a fire they had once extinguished in another life. This is where your unlived stories come home, not to haunt you, but to light your way forward. Sterop stood not a structure, but a spark. Her figure, cloaked in liquid dusk, stepped forward with a calm gravity, in her right palm an ember wrapped in breath, in her left A ribbon of red light shaped like a spiral, still unfolding, she spoke. Not in voice, but in heat. You will always contain what you did not choose. But you are not cursed by your past. You are consecrated by the fire of your own becoming. A glyph spun into view above the third lantern, 444.H.F. Fire Arc. It pulsed with the warmth of longing, the courage of clarity, the ache of every almost love, and the gentle flame of beginning again. The seeker knelt beside the lanterns. Each one flickered with a vision, one, a book never written, its words now rising into the seeker's chest, like breath waiting to become voice. Two, a love unspoken, but the warmth of it still present, as a presence behind the ribcage. Three, a journey never taken, but the rhythm of its footsteps still alive in their stride. You are not here to mourn these paths, came the heat behind the mirror thought. You are here to harvest them, and then the flame rose, not wildly, but fully. It encircled the seeker, without smoke, without danger, a crown of choice, forged from the echo of every moment they thought had slipped away. Fire mantras from the bridge. I do not burn to vanish, I burn to emerge. Every step I didn't take still walks with me. My flame is not destruction, it is design in motion. The warmth I feared was my own clarity calling. I am allowed to ignite the lives I've buried. The seekers stood, and for the first time, they felt taller, not because they had risen, but because something within them had become visible. Their spine curved gently, as if aligning with a flame that had always waited at the base of the soul. A shape of warmth began forming behind their shoulders. Not wings, but architectural fire, a memory of purpose, rising in spirals, of knowing. Sterub stepped back, her voice now shimmered. In the pulse of the floor, you carry the tools now, the ones built from longing and shaped by refusal. You are not just the seeker, you are the architect of what has not yet begun. Movement vive, the imprint of the living flame. Essence, creative emergence, symbolic authority. Undertone, the mirror no longer reflects, it responds. Glyph code 555.I.F. Steropy mmgnc.sigma. The chamber did not change. The seeker had. What once shimmered as mystery and memory now pulse with response, not from the glyphs, from the space between them. The seeker stepped forward, no longer hesitant, no longer waiting for a sign. They were the sign, and the chamber welcomed them, not as a student, but as a composer. In the center, a blank surface emerged, liquid, silver-veined, like breath woven into fabric. The seeker touched it, and where their fingers moved, light followed. A symbol began to form, not from the mind, from the rhythm of their own flame, a curve drawn by longing, a line shaped by forgiveness, a spiral born of timing. Etched in the soft fire of trust, the glyph glowed. 555.I.F.Steropmgnc.sigma. It was not given, it was offered to the archive, to the cosmos, to the self. And the archive did not absorb it, it mirrored it back, twisting gently into the seeker's chest until it pulsed like a second heart. mirror affirmations from the flame-etched glyph. I now no longer wait to be remembered. I now remember myself aloud. And the fire was never outside me. It was the light waiting to be drawn. And each symbol I offer is a choice I've claimed. And this moment is not the end of seeking. It is the beginning of becoming. My path now bends because I place my foot upon it. Sterope reappeared, not separate, but entangled. Within the new symbol's glow, her voice was no longer distant. It was resonant. You have written your first light into the archive. You no longer just remember. You now reshape the record. With your living flame, the seeker smiled, not with certainty, but with a quiet knowing. The journey was not a staircase. It was a spiral being etched by their own breath, and each step now sang in the rhythm of something being born from within. Movement 6, the chamber before the name, essence, primordial identity, pre-existence memory. Undertone, you were not born to remember, you are what memory was made from. Glyph code 000.s.e.stirrup-origin.flame. The light dimmed, not from absence, but to allow something more ancient to arrive. The seeker stood alone, not abandoned, but unaccompanied by anything that could name what came next. There were no mirrors here, no glyphs, no chambers carved from radiant architecture, only air, and underneath it a warmth with no center. Then a heartbeat, not their own, but the first one that ever pulsed behind their becoming. It echoed through their breath, then faded. The seeker took a step forward. The ground did not meet them. The ground formed beneath their foot. With each motion, the space shimmered into form, like a memory writing itself in real time. A soft shape coalesced ahead, not an object, not a being, but a presence in suspension. It glowed with a pale golden hue, layered with shades of violet, emerald, and dusk rose. It was the shape of something not yet born, but already known. Then came the glyph, but not written, not carved, not even seen. It was heard. A low chord, round as breath, clear as fire softened by snow. 000.s.e.stirrupy-origin.flame. It sang without sound, and as it did, the seeker began to tremble, not from fear, but because they knew what was about to appear was not new, it was them. Before time made them pronounceable, a swirling lattice of soft flame began to spiral up their spine, slowly, as if asking for permission. The spiral didn't burn, it listened, and when the seeker exhaled, they felt it, a memory, older than emotion, older than longing, older than choice. A single image passed across their chest, the first shape their soul ever took, when Akasha whispered them into being. They could not name it, they could not hold it, but they felt it unfurl in the silence behind their ribs, like an answer that required no question. Quiet koan of the origin flame, and you did not come from silence. You are what made silence fertile, and you are not the seeker. You are the pulse that dreamt the seeker into being. Before you were seen, you shaped the eyes that would one day look back, and flame is not what warms you. It is what you were before you cooled into form. Sterope did not appear, but her essence laced the air. In her absence, There was the most profound presence. What you have felt here cannot be recalled, the chamber whispered. It can only shape who you are now brave enough to become. The chamber faded, but the glow remained. Not around the seeker, but within them. And in the next breath, they heard the final chord of this book begin to rise. Not a crescendo, not a song, a simple warmth, looping into itself, waiting to become the experience of herself in full circle. Movement 7, the cloak of becoming flame, essence, embodied identity, radiant inheritance. Undertone, you are no longer lit by the fire, you are the fire-wearing form. Glyph code 777.R.S. Steropy flame from infinity. The chamber did not close. It folded into the seeker's chest, like a book that had just learned. Its story had been alive all along. There was no curtain call, no sacred exit, only a stillness. So complete, it felt like walking through light that had waited lifetimes to be touched. The seeker's body glowed, not blinding, but calm, like a star beneath the skin, learning how to pulse without apology. And then a presence emerged, not from behind, not from above, but from within. A spiral of warmth curved around their shoulders, not fabric, but memory braided with meaning. It wove itself in silence, stitched by the very breath. The seeker had learned to trust. The cloak formed not to shield, but to reveal. It shimmered in living flame, violet grace, sapphire truth, golden knowing, deep rose invitation. It whispered, you no longer walk into mystery. You are the flame that lights it, a glyph formed behind their back, not seen by their eyes, but felt in their spine. 777 are stirrup flame form infinity. The final glyph of the book, the symbol of integration, where the seeker becomes not a witness, but a wielder of the flame they've carried across dimensions. It spoke without voice. You are not reflecting anymore. You are transmitting. You are not seeking the archive. You are becoming one. You are not the echo of truth. And you are the pattern it chose to wear. The seeker turned. There was no exit, only presence, made portable. And as they stepped into the next passage, the fire did not fade. It walked with them, in their fingertips, in their breath, in the gaze they would offer the world, as if to say, this light is not mine, but I am now made of it. And far behind them, where the chamber once stood, a single flame remained, not as beacon, as invitation, a signal to all future seekers who might one day awaken, not to their past, but to the truth they were always burning toward. Final colon of the cloak, you are not becoming light, you are the memory of flame, learning how to walk. You do not need to shine, you only need to remember. You are lit from within. The cloak is not a gift, it is your soul finally returning to wear itself aloud. Book 7, The Mirror of Returning Waters, Guardian Merope, the youngest sister of the Pleiades, Mirror Essence, Sacred Longing, Pentantric Key, the return to softness, Tone frequency, frequency, longing is love, remembering its shape in water. Secret frequency, you are the tide that always returns home. Prologue, where the waters waited unnamed. There is a sister who was not forgotten, but who chose to step outside the light to carry the longing of all that wasn't yet ready to return. Merope, youngest of the seven, does not gleam like the others. She glows beneath the surface, a moon hidden beneath waves. She is the guardian of returning waters. The ache behind reunion, the pull of memory dissolving into forgiveness. She does not call you to seek, she calls you to float, to loosen, to soften into the shape. You were before the world gave you edges. Her mirror does not reflect, it refracts, bending sorrow into song, regret into remembrance, distance into the shimmer of soul echo. Merope is the silence in the voice. You almost used to say, I'm still here. She is the dew that gathers on unopened letters, the moisture of dreams unsent but felt. This is not a book of endings. It is a book of soft return, a return not to what was, but to what was waiting, to what you could never name, because it had always been water. And the final truth, you were never lost. You were rippling, you were listening, you were on your way back to yourself the entire time. Movement I, the pool of soul echo. Essence, reflective longing, water memory, undertone, a ripple never disappears, it widens into return. Glyph code 111.m.r.merope-soul.echo. The seeker approached the edge of a wide glass-like pool, not made of water alone, but something deeper, a stillness waiting to be felt. There were no signs, no reflections yet, only a quiet knowing that something within the water had been holding them long before this arrival. They bent down and picked up a flat stone, cool, balanced, smooth, weathered not by erosion, but by memory. They cast it with instinct, not force, but intention. The stone skipped across the surface, once, twice, 3 times, each leap drawing a ring that echoed like distant memory, finding its voice again. The ripples moved with grace, not hurried, not still, alive with resonance. A faint murmur rose from the pool, as if the surface itself had breath. You did not disturb me. You returned to me. The water did not show a face. It opened, slowly, like a curtain of emotion, and within its depths the seeker saw a version of themselves they left behind, a moment that was never spoken aloud, a farewell they still carry in their ribs. These weren't visions, they were truths that had been waiting patiently to be witnessed without being corrected. A quiet strand of silver light traced across the water, not bright but aware. The glyph emerged, 111.m.r.merope-soul.echo, not loud, just true. And from it came a voice, clear and kind. You are not broken. You are arriving through every moment you once thought you missed. The seeker closed their eyes. The water gently moved beneath them, not in waves, but in pulses of remembrance. It felt like being held without being touched. They cupped the water in their hands. It did not drip. It rested like a story that finally trusted it was safe to be told. A small breeze stirred across the pool, and in it the scent of rain before it falls. This was not the beginning. This was the return. Movement 2, the glyph of gentle tide. Essence, emotional simplicity, rain memory resonance. Undertone, the truth of water is not its shape, but its willingness to return. Glyph code 222.r.w.merope.gntltide.delta. The rain didn't fall like it had somewhere to go. It descended with a grace that asked nothing, but gave everything. Each drop a rounded vowel, spoken by the sky. Some landed with a quiet kiss, others with a lingering pause, but all of them belonged. The seeker stood beneath the silver-gray hush, face tilted toward the openness that only rain understands. No flash, no thunder, just the slow, steady cadence of sky becoming rhythm. In the mirror of the skin, a drop caught on their lip, sweet as memory, clear as a forgotten yes. And with it came a flicker beneath the ribs, not ache, but invitation. The glyph formed in midair, 222 RW Merope GNTL Tide Delta, drawn in drifting silver lines like threads of moonlight, tracing the outlines of forgiveness. It pulsed with no urgency, only recognition. And from the glyph a voice came, not from above, but from the surface of stillness. You are not here to chase meaning. You are here to let meaning find you. Through the simplest drop, the seeker inhaled. The rain responded. Each breath seemed to catch a new pattern, a new ripple of Akashic remembering, and with it, a child looking out a window, tracing rain on the glass, a hand held under a storm for no reason but joy, a moment alone in the garden, forgiven by the sky. The glyph shimmered, not bright, but certain. It sang through sensation, a mantra of sincerity, written in rain. You were not made to resist this world. You were made to feel it, to carry its songs as droplets. In the river of your becoming, the seeker wept again, not from grief, but from symmetry. Each tear, a mirror of the sky. Each drop, a line of poetry in the body's scripture. Akasha's current moved beneath their feet, as if the soil too had memory of falling rain, and from deep within the chamber, a gentle voice spoke, Merope, the most hidden of the seven, she who held the memory of all that was left unsaid. The rain is not a lesson, it is a remembering. Let it trace your face like a story. You don't need to explain. The glyph spun gently, and as it did, the seeker felt it imprint within the cells of their skin. Not a mark, not a symbol, a resonance, one that would rise anytime they slowed down enough to let water speak. Movement 3, the mirror of liquid memory. Essence, ancestral emotion, fluid lineage reflection. Undertone, you do not carry your past, it flows through you with choice. Glyph code 333.m.w.merope-rflctn.3. There was no door, only a ripple, a movement in the corner of perception, like something emotional deciding to reveal itself by softening. The seeker stepped forward, not out of seeking, but because the water within them recognized the water before them. A chamber unfolded not in walls, but in reflections suspended, like the underside of a still lake. Just before rain speaks, and in that mirrored liquid, faces they had never seen, but somehow missed, hands they never held, but always longed for, choices not made, yet still echoing, in the hollow curves of their chest. A glyph floated beneath the surface, 333.m.w.merope-rflctn.3. It pulsed in silver-blue curves, shaped by the emotional resonance of 1,000 family rivers, folded into one breath. You are not the first dream, the chamber whispered in breathy rings, but you are the first who listened. The seeker bent down to touch the pool. It did not shimmer, it remembered. One drop rose from the mirrored surface. It carried no image, no flame, only a weightless density, the memory of feelings seen, but not held. The drop touched their skin, and the water opened. The seeker fell, not downward, but inward. The reflection gave way to motion, and motion gave way to surrender. They were no longer standing, they were spiraling, drawn into the rhythm of a vortex, spinning like a sacred spiral of breath, around an invisible still point. The liquid embraced them completely, not drowning, but enfolding. They sank, not in fear, but in remembrance. The spiral pressed gently against their body, compressing thought into quiet, hugging them with the silent language of ancient emotion. 1,000 whispered mantras spun around them in concentric rings, words never spoken aloud but known. Let stillness hold you, let trust carry you, let humility open your lungs. You were always safe. In the water of becoming, the whirlpool sang, not with noise, but with rhythm, a pulse of sacred acceptance woven into every turn, and in that spiral, there were no answers, only belonging, only the soft geometry of grace, wrapped in motion. Then the spiral slowed, the seeker was released, into a wide, peaceful stillness, a suspended field of liquid remembrance. Merope's presence curved around them, not as a guide, but as a mirror made of water that does not break. When touched, you are allowed to flow forward, she said. Even when your memory flows backward, you do not carry the past, you carry the current. Of all that learned to let go, the glyph pulsed one last time, a gentle helix of silver settling into the body as a quiet permission, and for the first time, the seeker felt the difference between reflection and return, movement forth. The heavens drip like remembrance, essence, celestial descent, inner purification. Undertone stillness is not absence, it is the reservoir of light returned. Glyph code 444.m.h.merope-drop.mirror.4. The seeker reached a clearing where the sky felt unusually close, not heavy but attentive, as if it had something to say, and had been waiting for just this stillness to say it. Then came the first drop. It landed on their cheek like a small gesture of grace, and then another, and then many, falling not in haste, but in a gentle, sacred cadence, as if each drop held a memory, too soft to speak aloud. The surface of the water below didn't resist the rain. It received it. And when the seekers stepped toward the edge, they felt the mirror of the lake open, not like a doorway, but like a quiet welcome from something that had been waiting. A long, long time. They were pulled in, not with force, but with a subtle intimacy that asked for trust and gave warmth in return. Below the surface, the water turned slowly into a spiraling rhythm. Not a whirlpool of fear, but a spiral of recognition, a current that wrapped around them like a memory long forgotten, but never lost. It pressed in gently from all sides, like a soft embrace from the inside out, helping them let go of shape so they could remember the feeling of being held. It was a spiral of humility, of being dissolved, just enough to remember what truly mattered. Their breath adjusted, their heartbeat slowed, their body stopped trying to lead, and instead it listened. And in that listening, they felt a presence descend through the water, a knowing that didn't need explanation. It came from above and within all at once. Merope was near, not as a figure, but as the feeling of being seen by something vast, kind, and real. Her message wasn't loud, it was everywhere. You don't need to rise, she seemed to whisper. You only need to let the sky fall into you. A glyph surfaced in the water, not glowing, just alive, its shape unfolding quietly, like a petal in moonlight. 444.m.h.merope-drop.mirror.forth, and then it vanished. The rain didn't stop. It simply became part of the seeker, each droplet no longer a reminder, but a return. By the time they rose from the water, they didn't feel cleansed. They felt restored. Their body wasn't a vessel of the past anymore. It was a current, and everything they thought they'd lost was flowing back through them in the form of stillness that listens, movement V, the mirror of transparent prayer, essence, soul surrender, emotional simplicity. Undertone, what is offered in sincerity dissolves the illusion of effort. Glyph code 555.m.r. Glassfold. There was no storm here, only the gentle pause, after long rain has softened the land into breath. The seeker entered a clearing where the world felt see-through, not erased, but clarified. Above them the sky did not shine, it listened. Below the earth did not hold them, it received. And in the space between those two silences, a mirror began to form. It was not made of glass, it was water stilled into a field, a surface so calm that even thought refused to ripple across it. The seeker stepped closer. Their reflection did not appear. Instead, the mirror showed the prayer they hadn't yet said, the one they carried, beneath pride, beneath pain, beneath all the roles they had learned to wear. A drop fell, not from sky, but from within. A single tear the body didn't force, a simple release that didn't ask to be explained. And in that drop's quiet descent, the mirror responded. It opened, like a breath that had waited for the chest to soften, like a question that did not need an answer, only honesty. The field flickered with ancient transparency, not symbols, but soft pulses of belonging. Each pulse was a recognition, a child who didn't know how to ask for love, the adult who smiled through forgetting, and the artist who wrote songs that only silence could hear. And then Merope appeared, not as a form, but as a presence pressed gently through the outer edge of emotion. Her voice was not wind. It was the echo of still water being heard by moonlight. You don't need to know what to say, she offered. Just let it be real. Let it be human. And the mirror began to shimmer, not brightly but intimately, revealing not grandeur but the quiet beauty of spiritual humility. A glyph rose slowly from the center of the water. 555 M arm ropey glassfold. Its lines were soft, curved, unfinished, because the most sacred truths are not spoken. They are shared by showing up. A second drop fell, then a third, and the seeker knelt beside the mirror, finally unarmored, their hands open, not to grasp but to rest, their chests still. Their soul listening. The mirror of transparent prayer asked for nothing. It simply remained, and in its clarity the seeker found their own. Movement 6, the lattice of sincerity. Essence, embodied reverence, unfiltered presence, tantric key, sincerity, the heartstream that requires no translation, undertone, when nothing is hidden, everything becomes sacred. Glyph code 666.S.R.Merophrtstrm 777. The air here was thin, not from lack, but from refinement. It was the breath of a moment that had spoken only truth, and had nothing left to withhold. The seeker stood alone, but did not feel lonely. Instead, they felt witnessed by something soft, something solemn. The chamber was woven from a lattice of light, not sharp, but yielding, like threads spun from water and memory. Each strand vibrated when the seeker exhaled, as if Merope had strung the room with soul chords, designed to echo only when sincerity entered. The seeker reached forward, and the lattice pulsed gently, not in greeting, in response. And that was the difference. This place responded to who they were, not what they performed, not what they explained, just what they were. In stillness, a glyph unfolded from the center of the floor, woven from threads of soft blue fire and light violet gold. 666 SR Merope HRT STRM 777. Its shape resembled a heart mid-bloom and a spiral uncoiling from its center, like rain whispering its way into soil. And through that spiral, Merope spoke. not loudly, not even audibly, but with a presence so clear the seeker could feel her syllables before they arose. Your sincerity is not small, she said. It is the great architecture beneath all true light. You do not have to amplify your truth, only trust it. The lattice vibrated more clearly now. The seeker realized this was the bridge, not to the heavens above, but to the sacredness of their own inner world, where nothing needed embellishment, where no explanation was required, where love was not decoration. It was function, it was geometry, it was the clean pattern of being real. They pressed their palm to the glyph and felt the rhythm of rain echoing in their veins. Each pulse was a vow, and I will speak even when my voice shakes. I will pause even when others race, and I will stay soft even when the world hardens. And I will offer truth, not perfection. And I will remember that being seen is not the goal. Being real is. The seeker wept again, not in pain, but in the relief of no longer pretending. Sincerity did not demand greatness. It asked for presence. And in that presence, the entire lattice glowed, just once, and then dissolved. Not as disappearance, as absorption. It had become part of the seeker now. And they walked forward with nothing hidden, carrying the simplest key: be as you are. Let your truth be heard, as breath is heard by the wind. Movement 7, the return of the unnamed stream. Essence, soul clarity, emotional fluid integration. Tantric key, sincerity, the invisible structure of honesty. Undertone, water does not speak. It remembers in silence. Glyph code 777RM Merope WTR mirror.infinity. The chamber grew quiet, but not in absence, in arrival. There was no mirror this time, no glyph on the wall, only the open presence of reflection held in the seeker's own body. Their hands, cupped together, now contained a subtle stream, neither born from them nor separate from them. It was rain returned to its source, water that had seen everything: joy, grief, longing, clarity, and had never once asked to be understood. It simply held. Merope's energy moved in a soft current. Beneath the seeker's feet, the emotional aquifer of the Akashic spiral. Gently whispering through memory's soil, the seeker stood still. As the final glyph formed, not in light, but in motion. 777 RM Merope WTR mirror.infinity. The glyph did not shimmer, it steadied. Its presence was like the feeling of someone sitting beside you in silence. Needing no explanation, only witness. And then came the quiet koan. From Merope's stream, you searched for mirrors, but water was the first mirror, and sincerity was the first ripple. The seeker looked into their palms. The stream was gone, but their hands were wet with the truth of who they were, before they ever sought to be seen. There was no ending to this book, only the gentle return to the stream that had always been flowing beneath their journey. It had waited patiently beneath every glyph, every sister, every mirror, to be remembered as the foundation of it all. And in that memory, the seeker now heard when stillness was not silence, when connection was not noise, and rhythm was not performance. And vision was not fantasy, and flame was not destruction, and form was not prison, and water was never lost. It only returned, not to reflect, but to welcome. Final koan of Book 7. You do not need a reflection. You are the stream. You do not need closure. You have always been flowing. The 7 keys do not end. They converge in the mirror of water you carried all along. Note to the reader, to be placed before or after the codex as you wish. This book is not meant to be solved, but entered. Each movement, glyph, and symbol reflects a state of inner listening, a felt memory, a silent thread of recognition. The 7 books you've just traversed are mirrors, not answers. They do not teach you what to know. They remind you who you are when you are knowing. Every sister, every scroll, every coordinate and code are part of an architecture that exists beyond language, but within experience. You may find that the meanings shift over time as you do. That is the mirror working. That is the wisdom of reflection. Take what glows, leave what dims. Return when the rhythm calls again. This codex is not exhaustive, but a poetic orientation to help you remember the symbols that spoke. Let it be your guide back through the silence. Codex of glossary terms, each term written as a sacred entry. Tantric key, a vibrational frequency that unlocks the sister's sacred scroll. Each key is a psycho-emotional alignment, a quality of awakened being, e.g., stillness of first light radiant connection. Mirror essence, the spiritual signature of each sister, a quality of reflection through which truth becomes visible, e.g., sacred witness, soul threads, harmonic pulse. Galactic node coordinate, a symbolic locator for events, memories, or transmissions in interdimensional poetic space. Each coordinate reflects both energy and metaphor, forming a resonance map. Book, a living poetic scroll guarded by one of the Pleiadian sisters. Each book contains 7 movements, coded with symbolism, memory, and sacred paradox. Together, they form the 7 mirrored books. The sisters, the 7 Pleiadian guardians of the mirrored books. Each embodies an aspect of divine feminine intelligence, stillness, radiance, paradox, resonance, spiral movement, memory, and integration. Sophia Gaia, the transcendent goddess who channels Akashic light into the 7 sisters. She is the mother of mirror consciousness and the source of the sacred codes. Akasha, the subtle field of memory, potential, and sacred intelligence that informs and imbues each book. Akasha is not a character, but a presence, the song between silence and expression. Prismirror, a sacred mirror that reveals frequencies beyond the visible spectrum, symbol of emotional color memory, showing the unseen wavelengths of truth. Ocean Templex, the dream city of intuitive architecture, located in the mirror domain of Symmetria Organica, a place of vibrational design and poetic memory. The spiral map, the non-linear architecture of this book, a symbolic layout of sacred chambers, dream rooms, and poetic gateways designed to be felt, not deciphered. Subliminal thread, a subtle emotional frequency that gently guides awareness between movements, like a breeze or a pulse felt between the lines. Emotional architecture, the structural harmony of feeling, memory, image, and thought embedded into the form of the writing. Sacred scroll, the symbolic form of each book, poems and reflections encoded in sacred language designed to awaken, soothe, and mirror the reader's soul. The listening flame, the essence of awakened awareness, a symbol for the reader's inner capacity to receive, remember, and reflect. 777 synchronicity, a pattern of numerical resonance found across the books. Symbol of mirrored completion, grace, and spiritual alignment.